All right. So tell us your name and what do you do?
So my name is Tannon Carroll. I'm an interventional cardiologist with Seton Heart Institute.
So if I was 8, how would you explain what you do?
So I would tell you that I'm a doctor who takes care of heart disease or cardiovascular disease across the spectrum from, simple palpitations or irregular heart rhythms to patients who have heart attacks. So my main focus has been mostly in what we call structural heart disease, which actually deals with valvular heart disease or holes in the hearts, and actually procedures where we can actually do it non-invasively, where we can help patients who have those diseases.
What do you like most about your job?
So there's no doubt I love the patient interaction. One of the great things about being a cardiologist is you get to see patients when they're critically ill. So when they come into the emergency room with a heart attack, I'm the first person they see. But also after you open up their arteries to their heart, you see them in the hospital, you get to see that continuity of care. So I get to see those patients throughout the years as well as their families. So it's not only the acute aspect, but it's also the long-term continuity of care that you get.
Awesome. Where were you born and raised?
So I was born in Louisville, Kentucky. So a fun fact that I always like to say is that my dad played football for the University of Kentucky, and my mother was a cheerleader for the University of Kentucky. Actually, she was the first Black cheerleader in the whole Southeastern Conference. So, so born and raised in Louisville, Kentucky. At 6th grade, I moved to Houston, Texas, and actually went to high school in Katy, Texas.
Okay. So now you're are you a Longhorn fan now?
I am a Longhorn. So I went to undergrad at the University of Texas, and then went to med school at the University of Pennsylvania in Philadelphia, finished my internal medicine training there, and then did cardiology at Stanford in California. So I've been all over, but ultimately came back to Texas.
So you're conflicted when they play each other?
Conflicted when Texas plays Stanford. No, my loyalties are to my undergrad. So, and it's funny, there's nothing like, so my wife, she went to LSU, and but now she's grown into a Longhorn fan. I won't tell her that, but the kids, they all have burnt orange and they appreciate it. So, and then being in Austin as well, it's kind of hard not to maintain those Longhorn roots.
Drink the Kool-Aid, you mean?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah. My sweetie, he's from Louisiana. So, oh my God, he loves LSU, New Orleans.
Yeah. My wife, she grew up in New Orleans. Her dad is a Saints fan, hardcore, but it's funny. They all transitioned here to Texas after Katrina. So most of her family is still in Houston and in the Houston area.
Wow. So tell us about your journey as a doctor. Like, did you always know you want to be a doctor?
No, absolutely not. So the funny thing is that growing up, I always thought I wanted to be a politician. From the beginning, I knew I wanted to be vice president of the United States. And my dad, he said, you don't want to be a politician. You'd never get there for who you are or your character or the person. It's about who you know and not the things you do. So when I was at the University of Texas, I actually was in the midst of a lot of healthcare policy and reform. So I really started to embrace kind of the aspects of medicine that allow me to be a physician, as well as being someone who can be involved in the community and in policy aspects as well. So I actually worked in the Capitol a number of years while I was at UT. Worked in the legislature, helped get the CHIP program passed here. And actually, another aspect is I actually have a master's degree in public policy or government from Harvard. So it's still, but the great thing I like about medicine is that it's kind of the micro level of like all of that. So you get to talk to patients, you get to see patients on every day, you get to make impacts on their lives, and you have a direct input and policy depending on what you want to do with your career ultimately.
Do you know Dr. Melanie Belt?
I don't.
Okay, she's an OBGYN, but
Yeah.
I think she's at Austin Regional. But her husband, he was on my top lawyers,
Yeah.
Demetrius McDaniel. He would love to talk to you because he's that's what he's a lobbyist.
Yeah,
and so he's always out there looking for people like you who are have causes that he can champion there.
Sure.
So so I'll definitely make that connection because I think you'd be
sounds good.
if you really
we at the gala.
And it's funny
we have the opportunity.
Yeah, because I told when I interviewed him and I asked him, because he said the same thing, he wanted to be in politics. And he goes, then I started looking at or he started, like you said, interning and things like that. And then he saw how much they got paid. And he was like, I was gonna be a regular lawyer. Yeah. So
no, and you can make a lot more impact sometimes just on the community level doing other things. And I think so.
You don't know Demetrius. But all right. So you talked a little bit about it, I think. You said, when did you come to Austin?
So I've been now in Austin for about 8 years.
Mm-hmm.
So as we had talked about previously, my specialty is in structural cardiology. So it's kind of a new field that's kind of grown up in cardiology, where now the trends in medicine are now to less and less invasive procedures. So we've actually now are able to replace heart valves, fix holes in the heart without doing actually large incisions or stopping the heart. So I did special training in that at Stanford and actually was hired down here to help start what we call the valve clinic or the Seton valve clinic. So about 8 years ago, Ascension or Seton decided they wanted to expand their services in that. And then me and the CEO of our group, we kind of started that program here. And now, actually, we were just talking about it. In the last 8 years, we've done over 550 valve replacements, non-invasively, without doing open heart through the arteries in the legs. We've seen over 5,000 patients in our specialty valve clinic. So it's been something that's been very rewarding to see it kind of grow from where, we hadn't done any of those procedures to now, 8 years later, probably one of the top centers in the country.
It's amazing. It's amazing. So how do you, as a Black male physician, describe what that feels like?
Yeah, I think it's a challenge because, as we had talked about before, it's both a challenge and it's both as rewarding as anything that I do. So for a couple of reasons. One is as we had talked about, one of the most rewarding things I do is seeing patients in the emergency room when they come in with an acute heart attack. So I'm the first face they see when they're having those life or death issues, and actually being an African American and speaking to people in that moment is something that's never lost on me. I also, have there are lots of patients in the Black community who I think they are kind of, how would you say, hesitant or distrustful of medicine in general. And I think, and part of the reason is that patients don't, or physicians don't speak to them on their level. One of the big terms that I like to use is kind of health literacy. So, I have patients who come in who done their research on the internet, they know this, we talk about that. Our visits are very productive because, or in a shorter period of time, because they know what to ask. They know the disease states. They know the things that are going to modify their disease. And the problem is now physicians in general have less and less time to spend with their patients. So part of what I think is a really important thing for Black physicians is to be really cognizant of how important it is to educate our patients and our communities on their health status, so that when they go in, they have health interactions, they're as productive as possible. So I think it's kind of, I guess the best way to say is one of the things that I really think is important is empowering our community with the knowledge of their own healthcare so that they're able to utilize the healthcare as effectively as possible. And I see Black physicians and Black health providers as that vehicle to do that.
What life lessons have you learned?
So I think so one of the things that I think is when you're young and you have goals and you've always achieved, you think that your life is your career, or and I think once you have kids, once you get married, you realize that all this that you did before that time, those are important, but there are lots of priorities in life, and that work is just one of those pieces. And I think part of the most important thing you can do to be a great physician, a great father, a great person in the community is be as balanced as possible. And so kind of the things that I've learned over my, when you're young and you're like, I want to do this and I want to do that, you don't realize the importance of balance and that the other priorities in your life.
What advice would you give a young person who's from, is it Oklahoma? Kentucky, no,
Kentucky.
Kentucky, from Kentucky.
Or Texas.
Or Texas, that's right. What advice would you give them if they were looking to go into medicine?
Yeah, so I think a lot of people think that that if you're going into medicine, you have to be sick. I always tell people that a career is kind of not a straight line. And a lot of people think that if I'm going to be a physician, all I have to do every day is work and focus on that. But I tell patients there are different parts of people's career and different parts of people's lives. And I think that you have to seize each moment. So it's not, if that one test doesn't do okay, or there's other ways to get to the top or get to your goals than the traditional pathway that everyone else thinks that you have to do. And going back to what we were saying before, being balanced, having other priorities, those are what makes a good physician. Those are what makes a good community leader and a good person when you get to be a little bit older. So I think having perspective that it's not always going to be a straight line. There are going to be kind of zigzags in the road, and there are stages in everyone's career, and you just got to realize where you are and remember the big picture. But there are other important things out there too.
Got a couple questions from Tim Ferriss that I liked. One of them is, what purchase of $100 or less has positively impacted your life over the last 6 months? Something you purchased under $100.
You're asking hard questions now. I would say, so something, I would probably say that, one of the things that I enjoy doing the most is spending time with my daughter. She's taking up softball, and we've become a big, that's a lot of time we spend together is practicing softball in the backyard. And she really wanted this bag. So this bag that she had been looking for, the softball bag. And so what I would say is just that bag is a symbol of kind of our relationship and the time we spend just doing something that she enjoys and something I do outside of work. So her softball bag, I know but it's just a symbol of kind of something cheap, but that has brought value to my relationship with her and things that we do together.
If you had a gigantic billboard anywhere in the world and you could get one message, you can get a message out to millions or billions of people, what would that message be?
I think I would just say win the day, because every day is a day in its own, and it goes back to kind of what I was saying about the big perspective. So each of your goals, if you can just say that today I'm going to be a better person, today I'm going to set this little goal, I'm going to achieve the things that I want to do. And if you can go to bed at night and say, that was a day that I won, it was a good day. And instead of worrying about kind of the things in the past or the things that are in the future, if you just win that individual day, then I think you're going to be successful in your life.
Good. I think you should be a politician. You should, man. You got them.
Yeah.
Awesome. Over the last 5 years or so, what have you become better at saying no to?
So my time. I will tell you, as a young physician, I think I spent lots of time at work, and actually probably too much. And it's hard because when I'm not here, I feel like that I'm not able to see my patients. I'm not able to improve my craft. Work became all encompassing. And I would tell you that the thing that in the last year and a half, to be honest, that's probably changed the most is being able to say no to people about my time, particularly in my career. It's helped me to be able to balance myself, but also like like you said, I have young children, and I'm never going to get those times back. And so being able to say no to other people has allowed me to say yes to more things at home and to them.
When you feel overwhelmed or unfocused, what do you, or have lost your focus, what do you do to get back to center?
So usually I would say for me, exercise is important. Um, Also, one of the things that I enjoy the most is college football and watching. So actually, taking time away to just go to football games or sporting events. Also, a lot of my friends, I made great friends in college, and and so spending some time with them and using them as resources, because those were before I was ever a doctor at Seton Heart Institute or so. Just being able to go back to them sometime and just spend time with people from who are family or friends that I've known for a long time um, helps me when I'm overwhelmed. I think you're muted now.
What challenge, what failure or apparent failure has set you up for later success?
Yeah, but I think I thought about this because I saw this question in the questions you had sent. So one of the things that I always knew what I wanted to do. I always knew what school I wanted to go when I was in high school, and I always thought that the undergrad university that I wanted to go to was Stanford University, and that's from when I was, from in high school. I always knew that was just where I wanted to be. Just I'd done the research, had done my SATs, had applied, and one of the most vivid memories I have is actually is getting the rejection letter from them for undergrad. But I would tell you, it's probably one of the God had a plan for me when I got that rejection letter, because the funny thing is that that's where I ended my career. So it led me from the undergrad institution that I was at to going to the med school and the graduate school that I had. But where I ended my career, the funny thing is at Stanford. And so that was what was meant to be. And so that setback allowed me to have the journey that I had, but also I think God was telling me in the end that this was your plan, because I ended up there. And that's what kind of was the crowning or the last part of my educational career. So it's funny how those things come around, but it was definitely a rejection or a challenge that led to even greater things for me.
What advice would you give your younger self?
um, I don't know. I think perspective is always, that's why it's such a funny question, is because we say, now that you know everything that happened before, what would you tell your former self? But I think that's part of it, is you have to go through those things, and you have to be, to get to where you are now. So I don't know if I would tell myself anything particular except for, just be you and do you, and just and I think and eventually things will work out how they're supposed to work out.
What's your superpower?
We were talking about this the other day. I don't know. I think my superpower would be, I don't know, just being able to talk to to people at different levels. That's what I think is the gifting that God has given me as a physician is being able to talk to people no matter where they are. I do an outreach clinic in a rural county that's about an hour away from here. And to be honest, that's one of my best days. And mostly because there are patients who don't look like me, who haven't had any of the experiences that I've had, but being able to be a part of their lives and talk to them every day and kind of see where I think this is a funny story that I tell, but, I used to, in evaluating patients' symptoms, one of the things is I ask them what they do and kind of, what's a normal day for you and how do you feel when you walk through the grocery store? And I found that for a lot of my patients in the rural, they couldn't relate to that. But what they related to was, how do you feel when you walk through Walmart? And they knew how they felt when they walked through Walmart. So it's just kind of those little things that kind of allow you to relate to those patients, whether they're patients in downtown Austin who live in Westlake, or whether they're patients who are in the rural community, or whether they're patients who are minority patients who have very different experiences. I think being able to transition through all those communities and is a superpower.
Lord knows. What's the best place you've ever lived?
I don't know where I am now. So I think, I've lived in the East Coast. I loved Philadelphia. It's, as you can imagine, a student who was just out of undergrad, moving to Philadelphia, never having been there before. It's an interesting city. It grew on me. I fell in love with that. I've lived in Boston. I've lived in the Bay Area. But I would tell you the best place I've ever lived is my home now. Just the people around, just the city, just the community and kind of the home that I've made now. So I'm happy, very content.
How do you give back?
So, I think one of the things, it's an interesting question for a physician because I think every day a little bit I'm giving back. And I realized that before when a lot of it was taken from the time that I spent with my kids, because I was worried about my patients and coming in on the weekends, even when I wasn't working, and spending nights and after going. But, now I think that the ways that I give back, I serve on a number of kind of nonprofits. It's very important for me to be involved with minority students and trying to help med students. So there's a number of people from my undergrad fraternity who I meet with and kind of help them to learn the pathway to getting to a doctor. I also help with my kids' school, coach T-ball. So all of those things kind of are just giving back.
What fraternity?
Kappa Alpha Psi.
Oh my gosh, should have known. Yeah,
Yeah.
Rise, he's Omega, I'm Delta.
Yeah. And it's funny because I pledged here at UT too. So
Okay. Oh,
a lot of
back home.
yes, exactly. So
Awesome. What's your favorite book or book you'd recommend?
So my favorite book is Team of Rivals. It's by Doris Goodwin Kearns. It's actually a book about Abraham Lincoln and kind of his first couple of years of being the president. And actually what I found is it's just a great example of leadership. It also tells you it gives you a whole different perspective on kind of where we are now. I almost say like reading that nonfiction, but it could be a whole different world. And seeing how those leaders transformed where we were there to where we are now, and how sometimes it takes a whole team to kind of people who you don't agree with, which I think is what we need in today's society and politics, for a greater goal and a greater good. And even beyond what you can see for yourself, I think a lot of people are self-motivated, but I think trying to find common greater goods is where we need to be as as a community now. And it always reminds me, it's an amazing book.
I forgot to ask you this one question Tim Ferriss had that I love to ask.
Mhm.
It asks, what is an unusual habit or absurd thing that you love?
Or what?
Or that you love, something that's unusual, absurd. I mean, you might have to ask, if I could ask your wife, I'm sure she'd probably give a few, but
I don't know. I don't think I have any
everything's
really.
relative. So let's
So
just back that up.
I always, and my kids will tell you, is I always have to have a little bit of candy after dinner. So, and that's what they said. Yeah, Dad, you love candy. They say that all the time, but it can be like, and it's not a whole lot. It's just kind of like to take that taste of like whatever it was. I got to always end it with something that's sweet. So I don't like desserts, don't like cookies, don't like, but like a little gummy lifesaver after dinner, or a little gummy bear, gummy worm. It's like, or a Twizzler. That's it.
Yeah, I had another guy, a tech guy. He said he was addicted to gummy bears.
Yeah,
So
gummy lifesavers is mine. So
awesome. You talked about your kids. How would your kids describe you, or what would they say about you?
So I think, I think one of the things that I love is that they see how much I give to people in my work. So they always say, Dad, are you on call today? Because that means we have to take 2 different cars to wherever we go in case I'm called out for a heart attack. But I think that's kind of and then they always say, did you help anybody today, or kind of what? So that is something that I'm proud of, that they see the kind of the work, and that they see that helping people can be both a profession and you can be successful at that. And they see that, it's a passion. And so I think that's the important thing. And then the other thing that I always tell my daughter is that, practice makes perfect. And so, one of the things with kids, it's really hard to get them to discipline, but when you tell them that they have goals, and that there are certain things, if you work hard and you continue to put in the effort and you continue to practice, then you can achieve those. And that's how that's how you're successful.
What are you most proud of?
I would probably say my family. That I've done all the things and achieved and been to all these great schools, but as I had said before, your priorities change very quickly when you have 3 young kids, and you realize the things that are important in your life. And so that's what I'm most proud of, is the father that I am.
Who's your favorite person?
My wife. How about that?
Oh my gosh, it's either the wife
or my mom.
the mom.
My
Yeah,
wife and my mom. I will tell you, both of them are very powerful Black women who have supported me through all of this. So, yeah.
awesome. How do you want to be remembered once you're gone?
It's so funny. My dad, he used to say how he lives forever is through me being more successful than he was. And so I kind of look at that the same way, is that, the things that I achieved are to set up to make it easier for my kids and for them to be able to be more successful than I was, and to achieve the things that I never thought were possible. I am the first Black doctor in my family. And so, those things my dad always told me that his mother, when he said he wanted to go to college, she was like, what? And he was like, but Mom, they're going to give it to us for free because I'm playing football. And she was like, I don't know. How expensive is it going to be? She said, he's like, it's free. She was like, I don't know, though. I don't know about going to that college. And so to go from there to graduating from Harvard and Stanford in a generation is that. So I would tell you, I would feel like if my kids are more successful than I am, and the things that I live, that's kind of living for forever, or being how I would like to be remembered.
What advice did you ignore?
Um, I, it's kind of, I don't know. I don't know if I ever ignored advice. That's a hard question for me to ask because I think, you know, I think there's some advice you don't take, and the right thing to do is not to take that advice. But I don't think the right thing to do is ever to ignore advice that you get, because even those decisions to not do those things kind of help you in getting to where you need to be. So, I don't think ignoring it, not doing it, but kind of, not ignoring it, taking everybody's advice and kind of filtering it through your world lens and your life lens is the important thing to do.
What do you see as your place or your purpose?
I think I think the great thing is that I think with my belief in God, I think that I'm in my purpose, and I think He's put me here for reasons, and He shows me that every day. For my purpose is to be where I am now, to be in Austin, to be a interventional cardiologist at Seton, to be a father to 3 wonderful kids, to be a son to a wonderful mother, and to be the best husband that I can be. So I think all of those were my purpose, and they're all wrapped up in kind of who I am today. But it's not done yet. It's not done yet. I got lots more to do. So unfortunately, I have to go.
Okay, no worries. Last question. What does it mean to be chosen as a top 10? And what else, if there's anything else you have to say? Yeah,
I would just say it's just, it's an honor. I think, like we had talked about when we were talking about the gala, I think one of the important things is for Blacks who have become successful to remember the community and to grow that community. I think that's an important part of being successful. One of the things my mom used to always say is success leaves clues. And so one of the things that I think as a community we can continue to do is to promote those people who have been successful and allow those people to continue to help others who come behind us to kind of know how we got there, because there were ways that we got there, and there were clues, and there are things that we did. We went through a lot to get to where we are. And so, like I said, with my kids, hopefully they don't have to go through the things we did. But just as a community, I think us recognizing people who have been successful will allow others to realize that it's there. And also, hopefully they'll reach out to me or kind of use my example to help them become successful.
Well, thank you so much for your
No
time.
problem.
You did great. So we hope to see you on the 20th. Is there anybody we need to call to let them know that we need to make sure you got a table there at the gala?
Yeah, no, let me know what we need to do to get the table. Okay. Do you have my email?
I think she gave it to me because
okay, yeah, so just send me, because you sent the invite. If you could just send me that information by email, that'd be excellent, and then we kind of can go from there.
All right, awesome. All right, we'll see you there. Okay.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. Take care.